All right, I guess we'll get started. Hi everyone, welcome to the HydroShare webinar series. This webinar series demonstrates how HydroShare can be used to conduct better research and comprehensively fulfill data management plans for many different types of data. Today is the fourth webinar in the series, and today we have Venkatesh Merwade from Purdue University and Jeffrey Sadler from University of Virginia. If you want to take it away, guys.
Hi, thank you, Liz. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Venkatesh Merwade. I am a faculty in civil engineering at Purdue University, and I'm joined by Jeffrey Sadler, who is a graduate student at University of Virginia. So today we will be talking about sharing, publishing, and executing your SWAT models with HydroShare and SWATShare. So as Liz said, this is the fourth seminar in the HydroShare series. So I'm assuming that many of you have attended previous seminars and you know about HydroShare. So today we'll be focusing mainly on SWATShare and interoperability between HydroShare and SWATShare. So before I move, I would like to acknowledge the HydroShare team. So I don't want to list all the names, but I will be focusing on SWAT modeling or model instances. So John Goodall from University of Virginia, Mohammed Morsi from UVA, Tony Castanova from USCU, and Brian Miles from UNC. They are all part of HydroShare team. So they are the ones who are responsible for the modeling part of HydroShare. So as many of you know, this project is funded by National Science Foundation. Before the HydroShare project started, I was funded through the CI team program at NSF to develop HydroShare. And before that, the Purdue Engineering gave me some seed funding to use Water Hub. The Hub technology is something that Purdue developed, so we got some funds from Purdue Engineering. And then my technology partners here are Carol Song, Lan Zhao, and Ailuk Kim from Purdue RCSC ITAP Computing Center. So this is like a tentative outline of my talk. So before we do anything with SWAT, we would like to talk about why we should publish and share SWAT models with HydroShare. So Jeffrey Sadler is going to talk briefly about why we should share models in HydroShare and how that can be done in HydroShare. Then I will talk about what HydroShare is, what functionalities we have with HydroShare. And then after that, I will talk about why we need interoperability between HydroShare and SWATShare. And most of my talks will focus on some of the test cases that I have prepared to show how HydroShare and SWATShare might work for doing collaborative research and education. So with that, I would ask Jeffrey to talk about these slides before we start SWATShare. Jeff, do you want to take over?
Yep. Thanks, Tesh. Can I just let you advance the slides? So as most of you know, well, I guess everybody on this call will know that computational models in our science are very important and widely used. And often they can take a lot of effort, time, and money to set up and calibrate and verify between the gathering of the data and the time spent to calibrate, etc. So one of the questions is what happens when a project is over? What happens to that model? And is all the effort, the investment that was spent in that model wasted? Is the return on the investment over once that project is over? So traditionally, the way we share research outcomes is through publishing a paper. And we're wondering if we could share and publish models as a major research outcome, which I think most everybody would agree that they are in a similar way. And a successful system for doing this would it says on that slide, foster reproducibility. So that would increase the quality of scientific research. And it would also encourage the reuse and extension of the published models so that you can get more return on your investment and that those models can be spread and reused. All right, can we go to the next slide? So we're talking about HydroShare, and HydroShare, the functionality the community to share and publish computational models. So with HydroShare, you can document your model with the metadata needed to describe it fully. You can share your model with your collaborators. You can publish your model so that others in the scientific community, maybe people that you wouldn't normally think of sharing your model with or maybe even know, will be able to gain knowledge and maybe even extend the models you've worked so hard to create. You can archive your model with a DOI, so this is especially attractive if you want to use your model and cite your model in, say, a paper, a future paper, or even a paper that's being published coincidentally with your paper. You can cite the model in a permanent way. And then lastly, you can connect your model to third-party applications or even develop your own third-party applications to enhance your model even further. And Venkatesh is going to show us a really awesome application of that with SWATShare. So in HydroShare, just as a background, there's two main resource types that encapsulate models. There's the model program, which is the software or the source code, and its accompanying documentation. And then there's model instances, which are the inputs and the outputs that are executed by the model programs. So the executed by term is a link between those two resource types. So when you're wanting to publish your models in HydroShare, you need to think about those two resource types. Am I trying to publish the source code that's actually going to execute my model? And most of the time, the answer to that is no, unless you've developed it on your own, or if it's not already on HydroShare, you need to do that and cite the correct sources. Most of the time, you're going to be, most hydrologists will be publishing model instances, which is the input data, and then the outputs that are generated from the running of the model. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is a more in-depth look at model instances. So there's a generic model instance, which can describe basically any model instance. And then there's more specific model instances which will have specific metadata support for specific models. Today we'll look at the SWAT model instance, but there's also incoming releases. There will be a ModFlow model instance and others. So a generic model instance with a generic model instance, you can publish any model, but with these more specific, widely used model instances, you can more fully describe those models.
So as Jeff said, we have model programs and we have model instances. So what I'm showing you on the screen is a SWAT model instance. So basically it's a compilation of all input files, the text file that the SWAT program uses, and it can also include all the GIS data such as land use, stream network, soil data, and also weather climate data that was used in creating a SWAT model. So those of you who are not familiar with how SWAT model is created, so there are GIS pre-processing interfaces that can create a SWAT model for you. So for example, for ArcGIS, there is a program called ArcSWAT. So what you see on the slide here is an ArcMap program that was used to create this SWAT model instance. So in this SWAT model instance, we have the ArcMap program that was used, or the ArcMap file that was used, and then we also have the associated geodatabases. So SWAT 2009 is a geodatabase that you will create if you use the 2009 version of ArcSWAT. Then you have another geodatabase which contains the soil data. The scenarios folder contains all the input and output files that the actual SWAT executable will use. And the watershed folder contains all the GIS data. So if I open the watershed folder, I would again see separate folders such as shapes, raster, and tables that will specifically store those GIS files. So in this case, we are defining a SWAT model instance as a zipped folder of all these files that I'm showing you here. But if you don't have all the files, the minimum file that you need is a text in out folder, which is usually stored inside the scenarios folder. So the text in out folder will only contain the text files that you need to run a SWAT model. So with that, what we are going to do now is just show you briefly how you can publish or share a SWAT model instance with HydroShare. And let me see if I can pass the Jeff so he can show you how you can publish a SWAT model instance using HydroShare.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the home page, and you go into My Resources. I'm assuming that you've seen this in other demos, but we'll start from the beginning. So if you click Create Resource, and then here's where you choose your resource type. So down here, there's a subcategory for modeling. You can see model program, model instance, and SWAT model instance, which are the ones we're going to do today. So if I select that, and then I'll put the title here. So I'm more or less recreating a SWAT model instances on the website now. So this is Black River SWAT model. And then you choose which files to upload. So put those in a demo folder. And it's all in a zip folder, so I will upload that. And then
So it will take some time to upload the file. So are you there, Jeff?
Looks like we lost him, so hold on one second.
I will continue, or maybe, let's see, I can briefly show, I have the, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I will just briefly do this. So in order to create a resource, you click on create, then you can choose the model program instance or SWAT model instance. So let me do something else here. I will just use some name, model instance, and then I'll browse. So for now, I'll pick this file feeder create and this is create resource. So once the zip file gets accepted, it will give you a message and it will tell you that you need to at least provide an abstract, keyword, and model objective, and your model will get published. So let me just you use the edit button, and then I'll just write an abstract. This is the calibrated SWAT model for feeder creek. And you can add more, so in the interest of time, I'll stop there. I'll say save changes. The other metadata that you need to provide has to do with the objective of your model. So as some of you who have used SWAT model, you will know that SWAT can be used to do many things. So in this case, we will say the output is included, and we used it for modeling the hydrology part. And save changes, save changes. And once you do that, the other thing that we need to provide is keywords. So I'll just say feeder creek SWAT. So once you do that, you will get a message here that says the metadata status, and it will say that it is sufficient to make it public. There are more metadata fields, and I will talk about this when I get into SWATShare, that will ask information about the watershed area, what DEM was used, and the time step and all that. So once you provide that information, your model is now published, and one last thing you would want to do is you want to say whether you want to make that model public or you want to keep it private and share it with only those people that you think you will collaborate, or you can say it can be discovered, and then people who discover it can contact you or ask you to join your group to work with the model. So in this case, if I say public now, it will become a free model instance resource that anybody can use. So that's how you can publish a SWAT model instance on HydroShare. So all you need is the zip file and some information, metadata information, specifically abstract, and how it was used and the keywords. So now let's talk about what SWATShare is. So what you see on this slide is a landing page for SWATShare. So SWATShare was a program that we created here at Purdue for collaborative modeling using SWAT. So those of you who are not familiar with SWAT, it stands for Soil and Water Assessment Tool. It is a widely used hydrologic model that can do long-term hydrologic simulation, water quality modeling, agricultural management, and so on, that was developed at Temple, Texas, which is part of the USDA. So what SWATShare can do for you is, again, it has functionalities that you can use to upload or share your SWAT model. We have functionalities to run the SWAT model on the web. So one thing I would like to make clear is that you cannot use SWATShare to create a SWAT model. So again, with SWATShare, you would have to upload a zip file similar to what I showed for HydroShare. And once you upload that file, you can calibrate the model, you can run the model, you can discover and download a SWAT model. We also have developed visualization tools, which I will show shortly, that are usually not available with the regular SWAT interface. And then you can browse for existing models and download if you want. So again, we have interoperability with HydroShare. This is the basic architecture behind SWATShare. So on the front end, what we have are these 5 different tabs for viewing existing SWAT models, for uploading a SWAT model, for editing some of the metadata associated with SWAT models. You can run SWAT models. So when I say run, you can run normal simulation, you can run calibration, and you can do sensitivity analysis. And then we have visualization capabilities. So all these front end is supported by HubZero, which is a technology that was developed at Purdue, and lots of collaborative systems that are developed using HubZero. So these interfaces that we have for viewing, uploading, editing, those are developed using Flex. And at the back end, the data is stored, all the data and plotting is done by using the Apache server, and all the functionalities are supported by Tomcat Web Services. And then all the model simulation and execution is done by Exceed resources. So one of the good things about using SWATShare is that when you run the model, when you run auto calibration, you are actually using Exceed distributed computing resources. And you don't need a separate account on Exceed. You can do this just by having a login in HydroShare or SWATShare. So if you have a login in HydroShare, you can use that to log in into SWATShare also. And then we have MySQL database to store the job information and metadata. So this is how the tool looks like. So let me see if I can actually do a demo instead of using my screenshots. So I'll be jumping between screenshots and demo depending on some of this demo might take time. So this is how a SWATShare interface looks like. So the blue dots that you see here, these are the locations where you have existing SWAT models that have been developed by others and shared. And on the right, I have a tab that says My Models. So these are the models that I have uploaded into the system. If you want to look at the models that are shared by others, you can click on Shared Models and it will give you a list. And then finally, we also have a tab that says Private Models. Private models means these are the models that are published by others, but they are not shared with everyone else. So if you want access to that, you need to contact the person who uploaded that model. So some of the functionalities that we have, as I said, let me pick one of the models here. So I'll put the flat 2015. So once you select that model, it will give you the metadata associated with it. So it will tell you the DEM resolution, where the DEM came from, USGS, what land use was used, what soil data was used, and it will also give you all the other metadata associated with what methods were used in running the model, number of HRUs and subbasin, and how the model was discretized, and it will also tell you the simulation period. If you like what you see, you can visualize the model results. So there are 2 types of visualizations, temporal visualization and spatial visualization. So let me pick the temporal part and say next, and I can just say plot me rainfall and surface runoff, and it will give you the plot. If you want to plot multiple variables, so let's say I want to plot ET, I want to plot the percolation, I want to plot the water quality, so you just check those boxes and say draw plots, and it will plot all that information for you. So that's the temporal plotting. If I'm interested in spatial plot to see how the runoff is being distributed over the watershed or which subbasin is producing more runoff or less runoff, I can, instead of temporal, I choose spatial and say next. and then again I can say plot me, let's say, surface runoff, and so 5 months, that's good. So I don't want too many, and this may take a while. So this is where I go back to my PowerPoint to show you how a temporal or spatial plot looks like. So I showed you this. So I did not show you this, but if you want to run a model, you can use the Run tab and select a model and say Run. So this is what I just showed you, this temporal plot, and if you do the spatial plotting, this is how it would look like. So what I see on this plot is the distribution of rainfall, and then in the second plot, I see the distribution of runoff. So this is a good way of looking at things spatially, so you know which subbasin is responding to runoff in terms of change in land use and soil properties and so on. So as I said, one of the advantages of using SWATShare to publish your SWAT model is you get access to distributed computing resources, and you get access to these visualization tools which you would normally don't have with the regular SWAT interface or the even SWAT cup. As far as I know, I don't think they have this kind of visualization capabilities. And again, those of you who have worked with SWAT models, you know how much painful it is to handle those input and output files that are in text format. So the question then comes is, why do we want to have an interoperable system between HydroShare and SWATShare? If I can do everything using SWATShare, why do I need HydroShare? So here I have tried to list some of the advantages I see. So overall goal here is to get the best of both worlds in one place. So I would like to think of this as Expedia. So earlier we used to book our flights separately, we used to book our hotels separately, you can book your car separately, but if you use Expedia or any of those platforms, you can do everything at one place. So it's the same idea. So HydroShare lets you publish data, share data. So if you have access to all your data, all your other information that you're sharing on HydroShare, it makes sense to publish and share your models also on HydroShare instead of other platform. HydroShare also has its own data management and visualization capabilities. So for example, as I said, with SWAT model instance, you are not just publishing your input and output files, you are publishing much more, and you can get access to other tools in HydroShare which you would not get in HydroShare or in SWATShare or any other model-specific platform. One of the things that you can do even now is you can link your data and SWAT model to publication. So for example, if I have used a SWAT model to do research and have published that research, I can now link my model and a publication using HydroShare, and I can show that in one of my use cases. If you publish your SWAT model in HydroShare, then automatically you can get access to all the tools that you have in SWATShare. So you don't need to publish your models in SWATShare, and you don't need to publish your data separately in HydroShare. You can actually publish all of them in one place, and you get access to the tools of both systems at one place. So one of the potential we are putting all data in a zip folder. So for example, in future, we could have tools in HydroShare that will let you swap some of this data. So instead of going back into ArcSWAT and changing input data, you could do this in HydroShare and run multiple simulations in HydroShare using SWATShare. HydroShare also allows you to develop apps using REST API. So potentially one could develop an app that uses land use data, soil data, weather data, and create a SWAT model inside HydroShare. You don't need any other GIS interface. And as Jeff said, you could get a DOI for your published model. So I see a lot of benefits and advantages having HydroShare interoperable with other systems that are specific to one type of model or one type of data. So with that, what I would like to do now in next 15-20 minutes is to just show some use cases that you could do using this HydroShare SWATShare interoperability. So the first use case that I would like to present here is that you want to do a study involving land use and climate. So in a traditional way, in order to do this, what you have to do is you have to create a SWOT model from scratch, and you run that SWOT model for an existing land use, and then you calibrate the model, and once you calibrate the model, then you bring the new land use, then you run the model, and then you do the comparison. So let's say in this case, I'm interested in doing a study of land use on hydrology, and I'm interested in finding a model that will let me do that. So instead of trying from scratch, I'm trying to find a model in HydroShare where I can start with an existing model and then only change land use to see how the results will change. So before I do that, I would like to think of what watershed or what area I would like to focus on. And then there is no better option than using Las Vegas. So what you see on this slide is land use for Las Vegas. The plot on the left shows how the land use distribution, or let's say urban cover, was in 1975 and how much it has expanded in 2005. So this is an ideal watershed for me to study the effect of land use on hydrology. So in order to do this, what I would like to do is I would like to go to HydroShare and see if there is a model exist for Las Vegas. So let me go back to HydroShare. So I go to Discover here. And let me give a search here that says Las Vegas SWAT. And let's say I'm interested in an older model, Las Vegas 1980. And there you go. So how often does it happen that you're looking for a model and you find it, and coincidentally it's created by me, so it's no surprise. So here I have a SWOT model that was created and that is published, and it was created for a scenario in 1980. Then you know that their model exists, then you would like to explore that model to see how good the model is. So what I would like to do here now is click on that model. So now I'm in HydroShare, so I'm looking at this interface that you have seen before. But to explore the model, to see how good the model output is and whether the model has been ran successfully or not, what I can do now is I can open that model using SWATShare apps. So what you see here are apps that are developed that will let you interact with SWATShare from HydroShare. So in this case, I'm interested in just looking at the visualization to see how the output looks like. So what I could do is I could say open with and say use the SWATShare visualization app to, so as soon as I do that, it will go to SWATShare and it will give me this message that says it is downloading the model. Once it downloads the model, it will create a visualization similar to what I showed before. Now this is a 500 megabyte file, so it will take a while, so I'm not going to wait for that. Instead, I will go back to my PowerPoint and show what would happen if I had to wait a few minutes. So this is the workflow that I'm going to follow, discover the model in HydroShare, which is what I did. So this is what I just showed you. I discovered a model for Las Vegas in 1980. Then I want to explore or verify that model, so I use the Visualize tab. And this is what you saw before I switched to PowerPoint. It was downloading the model. Once it downloads the model, it will create the visualization, and it will take me to the same visualization interface that you saw when I was in SWATShare. So it will let me plot temporal. So similar to what I did before, I could do the same for the Las Vegas model that I got from HydroShare, and it will show me. So right now, there is no way to compare the model output with, let's say, observed stream flow data, but that is something, again, one can do if there is an app that can let you operate with multiple time series in HydroShare. So for now, I'm going to assume that this is a good model and this is what I would like to use. So as I said, you can also do spatial plots. So what you see here is annual precipitation, and then there is a spatial plot of rainfall. So once I find a model, which is basically, I got it for free, technically. So you can see that I did not have to create a SWAT model to do my land use study. What I have now is an existing SWAT model that works, and it was created for 1980 land use data. So in order to see the effect of land use now, what I have to do is just put the new land use data, NLCD 2011 or 2006, and how the hydrology will change. So right now we don't have anything that will let you do that, so you still have to do that on your local machine. You take the existing SWAT model, change the input data, in this case land use and also climate, and run the model, and then you get a SWAT model instance that will give you results for the new land use data. So as I'm saying on the slide here, we have to swap the data on a local machine, but as I said, potentially this could be done on the web. So let's say I do my, in order to do now, to do that, I also need the land use data. So again, I can go back to HydroShare. This is my HydroShare, so I can go to Discover and then say land use for Las Vegas, or just say land use Las Vegas. And there we have, so we have NLCD land use for Las Vegas. So let me click on that. And again, I can look at the metadata, so resource specific metadata. And you can see this data set is already, it has a coordinate reference system which is projected. Again, this is very handy for me because I don't have to project the data, it's already projected. And let's say I want to see how good the data is. In that case, I can actually use another app in HydroShare, which is the raster viewer. So I click on that, authorize, and then I can see the land use data that I have in HydroShare, and you can see it is clipped for the area that I'm interested in. If I want to change the color, and this is perfect, this is what I need, so I can actually get the land use data from HydroShare, swap it with my existing SWAT model, run the simulation, and again upload it in HydroShare. So I do that, I get the data, this is what I showed you. So now I swap the input data and create a new model, and then I publish the model. So after I publish my new model in HydroShare, again I can use the visualization tab to see my new results. So again, I was able to plot the time series plot of surface runoff, total water yield, and lateral Q. Now that I have the result for the 2011 scenario, and then I also have the results for the 2006 scenario, I can now create a plot, spatial plot, and so this is the surface runoff in 2005. So now I have my both SWAT models for 1970 scenario and also for 2000 scenario, and now I can do the comparison. So I don't know whether you can see the numbers on this. So the rainfall hasn't changed much between 1970s and 2000. You can see the surface runoff in 1970s for let's say 36 millimeter of rainfall, the amount of surface runoff that was being generated was less than a millimeter, but now it's in the range of 6 to 7 millimeter. So the surface runoff has increased significantly, and so is the total water yield because of the land use change. So these are the kind of things that you could do if you have access to models and data in one place, even though there is little bit of running of models on local machine, but a lot of your work has reduced if you have access to the information that you need at one place. So I can also do the spatial comparison. So you can see in 1978, the surface runoff, the maximum surface runoff that I have is 18 millimeters. So this is an annual plot, and the amount of rainfall is more or less the same for these two plots I have shown here. And this is the area where the Las Vegas is, the southern part. You can see we are getting the most runoff from that area, and that was the case even in 1970s, but the amount of surface runoff is much smaller compared to what you have now. So this is one example of how you could use information such as data and modeling resources in HydroShare to do studies like this, effect of land use on hydrology. The second use case that I would like to present here is reproducing of research findings. This is again something that Jeff briefly talked about in his initial slides. So what I have here is a publication. Again, I prepared the presentation and the demo, so I tried to use as much as information as I have. But potentially there could be a lot of people using HydroShare and publishing their models, data, and results. So what we have here is a published study in hydrological processes, and we use SWAT model in this. And this is figure number 7 in our publication. And what we have done is we have published this SWAT model in HydroShare. Now you would like to see if you can reproduce the hydrograph that we have reproduced here for this figure 7. So again, to do that, what I would do, and I'm not going to go back to HydroShare and do again, is I can search for a SWAT model that was, so I'm calling this SMA study. So we use this to look at the soil moisture accounting algorithm. So if I search for SWAT for Cedar Creek, I will get this as one of my search results. And if I click on that, in the abstract, it says that this is a calibrated SWAT model that was created for Cedar Creek in Indiana, and it was used by Rajiv and Merwade to investigate the curve number method. So for someone who is looking at a SWAT model that was used in that study, they could come and discover that SWAT model here on HydroShare. Then the question is, can you reproduce those results that we showed in the paper? So again, to do that, so here I'm just showing the metadata. So one of the things that you can do in HydroShare once you publish a model or any data is you can use these relationships. So there is a tab called Related Resources. So in Related Resources, I have created a relation that says this model is part of this paper. So you can see the paper and the models are now linked. Now let's say I want to reproduce the results. So again, to reproduce, all you have to do is create that time series plot. So I could use the visualization tab here. There are multiple ways you can do that, but the easiest way is the direct visualization. So if I click on visualization, again, I get the same interface that says I'm downloading the model, creating visualization, and I can create a temporal plot. So this is the temporal plot that I see here, water yield, which is the surface runoff. The only difference here is the units. I see the results here in millimeters in actual paper that was in cubic meter per second. So there is an option to just download the time series data from SWATShare, and then if I plot the results in Excel by using the correct units, you can see they match perfectly with what I see in that paper. So I'm able to reproduce the result that was published in the paper. Now what I showed here is an example from my own paper. I tried to do this on another paper which I'm not part of. So Larry Band and Yuri Kim, 2 years ago, they supplied us with they published some of their SWAT models on SWATShare. So one of that was Flat River. So I looked at their plot for Flat River in their paper, and I reproduced it in SWATShare. So you don't see the exact figure here because this figure is a little stretched, but I was able to see that the peaks that you see here, they correspond well with what we have in the system. The numbers don't match perfectly, and the reason may be that in the paper, they have a SWAT model that goes from 1925 to 2005, but the one that we have in the system is from 1984 to 2010. So this may be slightly different, but the the point here is that you could do this for any model that was published and that was also used in one of the published papers. So the final case that I would like to present here is you could also use this collaborative model and data sharing environment for education. So I have been teaching modeling and GIS in hydrology for last 10 years now, and some of the challenges that I face in using models in classroom is that you can get students to get excited about model, but having them learn the model and have them create one from scratch is sometimes challenging. Many students go through that work, but towards the end, what they have is an uncalibrated or poorly constructed model which cannot be really used. And they do all this hard work, and when they see that what they have created does not really create what was observed, so they don't appreciate it until very end when they start to see how everything comes together. And again, there are time constraints where you don't have enough time to create a model such as SWAT for any watershed in a class. So what I have done this year is I have used this test case in South Dakota. So this area has also gone through a lot of land use change, and it is also expected to experience a lot of land use change and also climate effect in the future. So what we did in this class this year was we provided them with a baseline calibrated model. So you don't have to create a model from scratch. We published the model in the system so they have access to the calibrated model for this James River watershed. All they had to do is change land use and climate and look at these different scenarios and study how the hydrology will change due to future climate and land use change. So we provided them with climate data, so these are different scenarios from GCMs, and then we provided them with land use data. So all they had to do is change the land use, change the climate, run the SWAT model, and again publish it in the system. And once the model is published, we ask the students to work in groups and then look at how the climate and land use change are affecting hydrology and write a report. So this was a collaborative effort where students were publishing models on SWATShare, and they were also using model results from other students that were also published on SWATShare, and they were working in a group to write a report. So here is an example from a group. So these are basically 3 students running three scenarios. So they were able to get a good model. Changing the input data was not a lot of work compared to the work that they had to go through in creating a model from scratch. So they were able to do the scenarios, they were able to look at the results, and they wrote reports like this. So this is one group. So another group, what you see here is a time series plots where they are looking at the surface runoff, soil moisture, and evapotranspiration, again in response to different land use and climate scenarios. So we were able to do this. We did not use HydroShare because at that point the SWAT model instance, I don't think it was ready, and also we did not have interoperability between HydroShare and SWATShare. But in future, if I do this, this is how this would work. So I would publish a calibrated baseline model in HydroShare, and I will also publish land use and climate data in HydroShare. Students get the models and run simulation, and they write a report, and all these reports will also be published in HydroShare with link to data and models. So with that, I finish my presentation. I don't want to repeat what you see on the slide because we have 10 minutes, so instead I would like to open the floor for question and answers. So thank you.
If you have any questions, please type into the chat box.
So let me see if I can open the... Should I stop sharing, Liz, to see the questions?
Yeah, you can stop sharing your screen. All right, any questions out there? All right, well, it seems like we don't have any questions. Well, we can wrap this up. So next week we do not have another HydroShare webinar. Instead, there's a quasi-biennial down in West Virginia, so if anyone is attending, we'll see you down there. And then the next webinar is on August 1st with Stan Ames, and so that will be the last one for the HydroShare webinar series.
So there is one question, Liz.
All right. From Phil.
With the rough resource input, and I don't have an answer for that, but I see David Tarburton is on the call. Maybe he can answer, or maybe he left.
Yeah, it looks like he left.
Yeah. So Phil, we can get back to you. Yeah, check with Dave. Sorry.
Any other questions out there? All right, if not, I guess we can wrap it up. Anything else you want to add, Jeff or Venkatesh?
Nope, sorry my internet cut out.
No, thank you very much.
All right, well,
Thank
everyone
you.
have a great afternoon. All right, bye.